Ambassador Dada, on behalf of my colleagues here, I welcome you to the Senate chambers. And we are in receipt of your CV. You are still allowed to highlight the major things that you want to highlight in the CV. And if there are any things that are omitted from the CV, but you feel strongly that the Senate needs to know for the purpose of this exercise, you may highlight them. Once again, you are welcome. You can address the Senate.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, the Deputy Senate President, other principal officers, distinguished senators, I wish to sincerely thank you for this very rare honor of welcoming me into these hallowed chambers of the Senate. I also wish to see this opportunity, with your permission, to thank Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for doing me the honor of nominating me for appointment as Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Your Excellency, distinguished senators, as you have seen from my CV, my names are Ambassador Zubairu Dada, some 67 years young, born in Minna, the capital of Niger State. Did my primary school in Minna, and also did my secondary school in what was then Fatima Co-Educational Secondary School, a Catholic school. After which I proceeded to Ahmadu Bello University for the School of Basic Studies, where by the special grace of God, I happened to have been one of the pioneer students of the School of Basic Studies. Thereafter, or after my studies, when I finished in 1974, I proceeded for my NYSc in Lagos, where I taught in Lagos City College, Yaba. And thereafter, I was lucky to have been appointed, to have had an appointment with the Northwestern State Government, where I started as an information officer. On the creation of Niger State, I came back to Niger in 1976, where I continued service as an information officer until sometime, I think in 1979, when I was challenged by my state government to take up the job of midwifing the first legislature in Niger State then. That was 1979, where I worked, or if you like, I trained as the editor, or the handset editor, of the first Niger State Assembly. I worked there for 4 years until the coup of 1983, as a result of which I went back to the services of the Niger State government, where I worked and rose to become a permanent secretary. Now thereafter, as a result of some reforms in 1983, I found myself appointed a director of MAMSA in Niger State until it metamorphosed into the National Orientation Agency, where I worked until 1999, when by the special grace of God, I was appointed an ambassador and posted to Poland After my tour in Poland, the then president considered me worthy of reappointment, and I found myself posted again to the Republic of Mozambique with concurrent accreditation to Mauritius and Madagascar. I served my term out there, came back to Nigeria in, I guess, 2007, until sometime 2011, when I was again appointed a member of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission, where I served for 5 years until 2016. And since then, I have remained a smallholder farmer back home. This, in a nutshell, Your Excellency, distinguished senators, is a little background of Zubairu Dada that stands before you now, sir.
Senator Muhammad Sani Musa.
Thank you, Mr. President and Chair. My distinguished colleagues, I'm Muhammad Sani Musa, Niger East Senatorial District. I will first and foremost appreciate the patience of my colleagues in seeing that the nominee read his biodata again, despite been having it in his CV. Ambassador Zubairu Dada is a bona fide Nigerite who has contributed immensely to the development of Niger State. And I believe that by extension he has done so much also to Nigeria. He was one of those people that actually looked at the income of both the civil servants and the legislatures. And I knew that he has been emphasizing that having legislative experience back in 1979, he believed that the legislatures are those people that are supposed to be remunerated very well so that they will do the best for the country. And I believe if we give him the support now, he is going over there, whichever ministry he belongs to, he will be able to support us as much as he can in seeing that whatever legislation we put in place, the executive will by all means try to implement. So I will appeal to my colleagues to, as a precedent, to give him a chance, having legislative affairs, despite the fact that he wasn't elected, but he made right between the legislators and he's a diplomat. Thank you very much. So I think he should take a bow, and I'm sure he has passed all the scrutiny that we have done to the previous ones. He has also passed that one. So I believe that he can now take a bow and go. I'm appealing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting as chair. I'm Aliu Sabi Abdullahi. I represent the very good people of Niger North Senatorial District. I'm from Niger State. Distinguished colleagues, the task before us, which we have started since yesterday, is one that involves scrutiny, evaluation, to know how appropriate and apt a nominee is to occupy the exalted office of a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Within this context, Mr. President, sitting as chair, my distinguished colleagues, going through the CV of the nominee, it is very obvious that this is the third time that this nominee will be appearing before this very distinguished chamber. Having been nominated earlier as an ambassador and being cleared by a committee of this Red Chamber, he was reappointed and definitely have to go through the same process again. That means, for all intent and purpose, that this very distinguished chamber has found Ambassador Zubairu Dada worthy of flying the flag of the Federal Republic of Nigeria twice. Within this context, and given the fact that we still have much grounds to cover, I think it is apt, Mr. President, sitting as chair, my distinguished colleagues, to say that we are looking at somebody we have found already worthy twice. I think this third time, it is not out of place. And I don't think we will be doing anything outside what our tradition requires. That whatever this chamber has held as a tradition, I think it is worthy of being respected. Within this context, Mr. President, sitting as our chair, distinguished colleagues, I want to seek your indulgence that Ambassador Zubairu Dada takes a bow and leave. Thank you.
Senator Bima Mohamed Enagi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my colleagues. Constitutional point of order. 147(2). But 147, of course. There shall be such offices as ministers of the government of the Federation as may be established by the President. Any appointment to the office of the minister of the government of the President shall, if the nomination of such a person to such office is confirmed by the Senate, be made by the President. This is a confirmation hearing. It's not an endorsement hearing. And I so move that we abide by what the Constitution says.
Your point of order is noted. Senator Bima.
For this privilege, my colleagues, my name is Bima Muhammad Enagi. I represent the good people of Niger South from Niger State. Mr. Nominee, I would like to congratulate you for this privilege being offered to you by Mr. President for you to be a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. For those of us that have known you for quite some time, we know you are a man of very high integrity. You are a man that is committed to work. So we are not surprised that Mr. President has nominated you. Mr. President, whom everybody here will agree with me, is Mr. Integrity. I will appeal to my colleagues that I key into the recommendation of my other colleagues from Niger State. We had actually met and we had all agreed to appeal to this Senate for you to do the right thing. And the right thing to be done is for the nominee to bow and go. Thank you.
off your mic.
Senator Stella Odwa.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, my name is Stella Odwa and I represent Anambra North. Mr. Nominee, I have two questions. Number one is, going through your CV, clearly you haven't worked in the private sector. You've done majorly public sector work, appointments, etc., which is good. But my question is this, Mr. Nominee. You've worked with MAMSA. What would be your policy thrust if you are given the responsibility to reposition NOA, for instance, to the extent that Nigerians will be conscious of their civic responsibility? How would you reposition NOA, and what, like I said before, would be your policy thrust of our national social contract, that everybody will buy into that? The second question I have is, the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, very bogus, very pivotal, and very fundamental for our economic growth. My personal view is that we need to break them into two. Rural development should focus on rural development, and agriculture should focus on agriculture and its value chain. I believe when that is done, then we can have a bottom-up economic growth that will be holistic. I want to know your view towards this, and do you think that will enhance our economic growth? Thank you very much.
Minority Whip.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise in support of the three senators from Niger State, and to say that I support his nomination, and pending when we have our nomination from the FCT, I will support both the nomination and of Nasarawa and Niger, based on proximity, Mr. President. But I want to say that we are still expecting and hoping that the FCT will have nomination by the grace of God and by your support. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Patrick Abamoro.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this privilege. My name is Comrade Abamoro, Senator representing Benue South Senatorial District. Mr. President, our colleagues who have acted in no small measure to stabilize this system have given testimonies about the nominee from Niger State. In the same spirit, Mr. President, I think that given the rich resume of our Ambassador, His Excellency, and the testimonies of our colleagues here, I support the opinion that he should be allowed to take a bow and go, because he's eminently, by my estimation, qualified to be a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I so submit.
Well, distinguished colleagues, there are two questions from Senator Stella Odwa, and you take a bow and go after you respond to questions she raised. So you can respond, please.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Distinguished, talking about repositioning the National Orientation Agency, when I look at the present NOA as it is, I look back with a sense of nostalgia at how MAMSA operated in those good old days. I believe the only difference will be that in those good old days, MAMSA was fairly adequately funded. And the staff of MAMSA were equally very well motivated. And they had a complement of all the equipment that they needed to enable them perform maximally. If MAMSA succeeded, I believe it had to do with the fact that the government gave them all the support that they needed to succeed. And I want to believe that some of the staff that we must have worked with, even if some of them have retired, I believe there must still be a good number of them that are still in the National Orientation Agency of today. What is very critical, what is very essential, is one, funding, and two, motivation for the staff. Now, talking about repositioning National Orientation Agency, I guess will all revolve around these two key areas. Because like they will say, it's not so much of the equipment that is available to them, but the motivation of the staff to give of their best. And I have no doubt, Your Excellency, distinguished senators, that given the support that they need, and especially at this very critical moment in the life of this nation, especially with regard to current developments and also the issues of the social media, which are almost setting this country on fire. Nigeria needs to immediately resuscitate the activities of MAMSA in such a manner as to enable them to reach out to the grassroots as they used to do. We now have a situation in which National Orientation Agency's activities are almost limited to the mass media. Unfortunately, the mass of our people are in the rural areas, and some of them don't have any access to newspapers, they don't have access to the radio or television, and therefore they're not even aware of what exactly is happening. If MAMSA succeeded, it was because it reached out to all the nooks and crannies of this country. So, Your Excellency, distinguished senators, my simple opinion is that to reposition National Orientation Agency, the government must be ready and willing to make it work. Talking about Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development and the need to break it into two, yes, that would be most welcome. But again, considering the economic situation of the country, I am not sure that it is in the best interest of this country to start duplicating bureaucracies. I believe ministries are essentially supposed to give direction. They are supposed to give policy direction. And I believe the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development as it exists today, given the requisite manpower, given again the support that it needs, should be able to discharge this responsibility without necessarily duplicating bureaucracy. This is my very humble opinion.
Is it the wish of the Senate that the nominee takes a bow and go? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Point of order.
Don't worry. These are not good. I wrote about the power of government. Yeah.